after Oamaru, I came back to Dunedin and was given a job in the Dunedin hospital. Initially I worked in a little bit in orthopaedics, but mainly surgery, and there was a neurosurgery ward on the top floor of Ward 4, 5 and 6. So I spent a lot of time with surgical patients, and in the surgical ward they had what they call the HDU. It was again a new innovation of having a high dependency unit, and they were also just trialling things like parenteral feeding. In those days there was a very keen young registrar who was doing research into parenteral feeding, who's now the senior vascular surgeon at Dunedin Hospital. And again, I was able to work alongside him while he was doing his studies with the parenteral feeding, and I was managing the patients in this little HD unit. But there was a great deal of collaboration amongst the staff between doctors, nurses, physiotherapists, and it was a real team environment in those days, and it was the beginning of ward receptionists as well. All those things were just coming in at the time when I came back to Dunedin Hospital. But I used to be very enthusiastic about taking my neuro patients over to the pool to put them into a hydrotherapy environment, and even though they were still very drowsy, I think that it was a good therapy, and there was good response from the patients in that hydrotherapy environment. There was also a development in terms of structure of the physiotherapy staff, I suppose, and they were beginning to appoint section physiotherapists. This would have been in my second year back, and so eventually I must have applied for the job and got a job as a section physiotherapist, and so became in charge of the medical and surgical section of the department. And then in 1976, the charge physiotherapy job at Whakaari Hospital became available, and I considered what I would be doing. Most of my friends by that time had gone overseas, because usually after 2 years of experience you would go overseas, and I'd graduated in 73 and I still hadn't gone overseas, which was quite unusual. But I decided to apply for the position at Whakaari as the charge physiotherapist, and I was given the position. I actually was offered the position, and then I found out that there was an appeal, that someone had appealed against my being appointed. And I believe that it was the first time that an appeal had ever happened at the hospital. The Department of Human Relations, or HR, had just started as well. Suddenly hospitals had decided these were good things to have. And so it was their very first appeal that they had to deal with. And the appeal wasn't upheld. I was given the job, and so I went up to Whakaari. Whakaari in those days had the thoracic surgery and the paediatric inpatient area and another general surgery ward, and then some care of the elderly. So again, it was a step in the direction that I seemed to be moving in, and that I was interested in working in intensive care and with surgical patients and the high dependency types of patients. So to go and work with the thoracic surgeons with the post-op thoracotomies and things like that was another good challenge. And the surgeons there again were very dependent on physiotherapists, and woe betide if the patient ever had to have a bronchoscopy, because it meant that the physiotherapist hadn't done their job adequately. And it was true in that we really needed to mobilise these patients, and to mobilise them in bed, mobilise them on their feet, get them to be encouraged to clear their secretions, and never have a bronchoscopy required. So that was a challenge in itself, I think, to do that. And again, we had a very good working environment there. It was a great place to work, and I think the staff enjoyed working with me, and we introduced some new things. And Judy Wilson, who's been a staff member at the school here, was the clinical supervisor for students in those days, and she was appointed to come to Whakaari to be with the students. So that was probably my first association that I had with Judy on a professional basis, and that she was there working part-time as a student supervisor. But the staff were great, and again it was a very integrated environment amongst all of the health professionals. But I probably was looking ahead to what I would do next, and I had an opportunity to go overseas, not to Britain as everyone else was doing, but I was interested to do something different. And so I decided that I would go to Hong Kong and work in Hong Kong. So I left my position in 1977 and ended up going to Hong Kong.